I'm Philip Chase. Welcome to my YouTube channel on the best of fantasy. This will be my very first TBR video. To be completely honest with you, a little over 4 months ago when I started this channel, I didn't even know what a TBR video was. But I can see how much fun they are, and there's just so much potential and so much excitement, and I'm really looking forward to telling you about some of the books that I'm going to be reading this summer and doing videos on. So it's also a good time for me to do a TBR because I'm close to finishing the videos that I initially envisioned doing when I began the channel to promote fantasy and celebrate great fantasy. I do have a few of those left. For example, Susanna Clarke's Jonathan Strange and Mr. Norrell. That's a book that I absolutely adore. I think it's brilliant. And also Lev Grossman's The Magician's Trilogy. That's those 3 books I think get better with each book. And by the way, don't let anyone ever tell you that they are like Harry Potter, because they're not in any way whatsoever, except that there is a school of wizardry. The more obvious comparison would be the Narnia Chronicles. Another one that I'm hoping to do a video on is Tad Williams' Sorrow, Memory, and Thorn. That's an older one, a trilogy that I read very long ago and just considered to be a great story. And along similar lines, there's Guy Gavriel Kay's Tigana. That one I read so long ago that I'll probably have to reread that before I can do a video. And also, I have plans to do a Mistborn trilogy, the original trilogy, by Brandon Sanderson, along with my daughter Reshma, who recently finished reading the Mistborn trilogy. In fact, she's actually halfway through the 2nd book of the Stormlight Archive now, so she's becoming a bit of a Brandon Sanderson fan, so it'll be fun to do a video on the Mistborn trilogy with her. And a book that I read earlier this year and was considering was the Brent Week's Lightbringer series, the first book, The Black Prism. That's a book that I did read earlier this year. Was a little disappointed, to be honest with you. I did find the characters kind of flat and the writing to be a little simple. That might be a book that I would recommend for a younger reader, perhaps, but there was enough there that I think I might want to continue reading that series. So if you have opinions about the Lightbringer series, please leave a comment. I'd love to hear what you think. And yeah, I just recently finished reading, or I should say rereading, for I don't know how many times I've read it, but A Song of Ice and Fire, which is, for me, as you know, if you've been following me at all, I think it's one of the greatest series of all time, even though it's unfinished. So I do have, upon my rereading, some thoughts to share about A Song of Ice and Fire, so that video will be coming at some point as well. I also have several ideas for some fantasy-related videos that I hope you'll watch. But for now, my TBR, here are the books that I plan on reading this summer, at least for the next, 10 weeks or so. And I'd love to share them with you. And if you have thoughts on these books, please leave some spoiler-free comments and let me know what you think. Are some of these maybe some of your favorites? How did you find them? So I'd like to begin with some books by authors that I have read before and am very excited to read some more work by them. And the first is Mark Lawrence. That is, I'm going to be reading his Red Queen's War, starting with book 1, which is, of course, Prince of Fools. And then I also have with me here The Liar's Key, which is book 2 of that same trilogy. There is a 3rd book, The Wheel of Osheim. I don't have that yet, but I'll be purchasing that, I'm sure, because I'm pretty confident I'm going to love these books based on the Broken Empire trilogy, which I absolutely love. I put that in one of my top 10 videos. So Mark Lawrence, great writer. I'm really looking forward to getting to know more and more of his work. Another one that I'm really excited to be reading, Steven Erikson. I have done a video on the Malazan Book of the Fallen, and that was a series I read, and I believe that I'm going to love it even more once I do a reread of that series. I think that's one of those rare things where you get you get more and more out of it the more times you read it. And that's a testament, I think, to the quality of Steven Erikson's writing. I think he is a brilliant writer, which you know if you watched my video on Malazan Book of the Fallen. But I'm going to be reading the first 2 books that are out in his Kharkanas trilogy. So I have here Forge of Darkness, that's the first book in the trilogy. And also with me, I have Fall of Light, the second book in the trilogy. I don't think the third book is out yet, otherwise I would have it. I am really, really pumped to be reading some more Steven Erikson. And I think, as I said, the more I read of him, the higher my opinion of his work is going to grow. I wouldn't be shocked if I do another top 10 video if Malazan Book of the Fallen works its way deep into my top 10. So we'll see, but I'm very excited about that. Another author I've read before and have done a video on, the First Law books by Joe Abercrombie, and I have his, came out last year I think, A Little Hatred, which is the beginning of a new trilogy by Joe Abercrombie, set in the same world as the First Law a little bit later. I am so excited to be reading this book. And I think I've heard that the second book in this trilogy, this new trilogy, is going to be coming out this year. So I need to catch up. And yeah, I just love Joe Abercrombie's work and very, very excited to be reading this. So on to the books by authors I have not read before. And I would especially love to hear your opinions on these. But I've heard a lot about them, and I'm really excited to be expanding the list of authors that I've read in fantasy. Hopefully, on my quest for finding great fantasy, some of these are going to make my list. But the first one that I'm really curious about is, you probably have all heard something or other. Maybe some of you have seen the show. I don't have the television, so I don't watch the show. But Blood of Elves. This is the first in the Witcher series. So obviously I have a translation. I don't read Polish, unfortunately. So I'm excited to see this, to check it out. I have really very little knowledge of this series, other than that a lot of people seem to like it. So I'll see what that's all about. And the next one, this is one I've had some really high recommendations for. Jim Butcher. I have not read the Dresden Files yet. I'm a little embarrassed about that. Because a lot of people think very highly of this series. So I've got the first one, Stormfront, and I am really, really looking forward to this read. I think this is going to be, just based on what I've heard, it sounds like something a little different, and I'm always looking for something a little different, so I think this is going to be a pretty impressive series based on what I've heard. So again, if you've read it already, let me know what you think. Next, I have another one that is something a little different in the world of fantasy. Has as I understand it, very big following. Stephen King's The Dark Tower series. I have the first book here, The Gunslinger. Very excited finally to be reading this. I'm a little embarrassed to admit I have not read any full-length novel by Stephen King before. So I know a lot of people have warned me about the series and say, well, you know, the first book starts a bit slow and the series really kind of gets going. So I've heard that, I know. So, yeah, I'm up for something different. I'm always up for something different. And I think based on the enthusiasm that I've seen from some of my viewers for Stephen King and the Dark Tower series in general, I think I might find myself liking this. So we'll see. I honestly don't know yet. But next on my list, something I'm really looking forward to here, the Poppy War by R.F. Kuang. And I don't know a whole lot about it, but I've heard some good things, and I've also, I'm always looking for something, again, a little different, and I think that's what this might be. So the Poppy War, I'm very excited to be reading this, a different take on fantasy, I believe, based on what I've heard. So yeah, this is definitely one of the ones I'm really excited, and I hope I'm going to love. So yeah, the Poppy War, and I think there's a second book out already. And if I love this, I'll certainly be buying the second one. And then we have V.E. Schwab's A Darker Shade of Magic, another trilogy. And I haven't read this before, been hearing some good things about it. This is an author I'm really curious to get to know a little bit of her work. So I have high hopes for this one too, and I'm really excited to be reading A Darker Shade of Magic, and I will continue with the trilogy, obviously, if I like this, and I anticipate that I definitely will. Last, I have here a book that maybe not as many of you have heard of or read. This is one from a German author, and I had one of my viewers actually recommend this to me. I thought, hey, let's try something a little different. Maybe you have heard of it. I don't know. It's called The Elven, and it's by Bernhard Hennen. So he's originally a German author. This is a translation into English. I actually can read German, but it would take me a long time to read the original. So I'm going to cheat and read the translation, and I hope I love it. I'm also told that this is a series that gets better as it goes along. So yeah, it's kind of a big one too. I didn't realize it was this thick. So really looking forward to that. And to all of the books on my TBR, again, let me know what you think about any of them. I will be making some videos in the not-so-distant future on these books and the others that I mentioned, and some other fantasy-related themes. So I hope you'll join me for those. I'm very excited to hear what you guys think of these books, and until next time.